is brought to you by Madrid Maintenance. Madrid Maintenance offers excellent handyman service in the Colorado Springs area, starting at just $45 an hour. You can reach them by phone at 719-963-2020 or online at facebook.com/Madrid Maintenance.
Enharmonic Studios. Enharmonic Studios is a hybrid digital analog facility designed to be quality and affordable to anyone who wants to make history. Call today 719-963-2020 or go to facebook.com/Enharmonic Studios.
Did you know that men are going to arrive in heaven 30 minutes earlier than women will?
How?
The Bible says it. Revelation chapter 8:1. When he opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. Where you going? Hey, where are you going?
Live from Trevor's house. Streaming all over the world. It is your weekly dose of toxic masculinity. With Trevor Lane. It's Man Tools.
Hello, everyone. Yes, we are broadcasting from my house instead of from Enharmonic Studios. Eric, as he said last week, he is up in Denver enjoying a rock and roll show with Big Rec. But that's okay. We have a great show for you tonight. In fact, we have a guest. And so I, instead of the normal, how was your week nonsense banter that usually I go back and forth with Eric, I'm going to go ahead and bring in the guests and we're going to get the party started. So without further ado, please give a warm Man Tools welcome to Anson Young. He is a real estate investor, a dad, a husband, a scout leader, an author, and a former semi-pro musician. And we will get into a little bit of all of that, I think. So welcome, Anson.
Hey, Trevor. Thanks for having me. And sorry that Eric couldn't be here, but
That's
hopefully
all right.
I can fill his shoes.
Well, I won't put too much pressure on you to make you like the co-host or anything. But, at least it won't be me just shouting at the internet. So
That's right. That's right.
Well, so I kind of went over, I think, the high points there. Real estate investment. You're a dad, a husband, scout leader, and apparently an author and former semi-pro musician. So I guess we'll start with the real estate investment because that seems to be kind of your focus now, right?
Yeah, I mean it's my job, so I'd say it's
Yeah.
my focus for sure.
All right. Now I have not branched out into real estate investment, but we do talk. We have a sponsor that is they're a gold company, Noble Gold. So
Okay.
I'm a big fan of tangible, like putting your money in things where it's an actual thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you can go touch it, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I guess tell us a little bit about real estate investment, and I don't know. I guess get as deep into that as you want.
Yeah, sure. We'll be here all night. No, so I mean, I started off going to 1 year of college. It really wasn't for me. Um, and I kind of lucked into an IT job. A friend of mine was working for a financial services company here in Denver, and they needed a nighttime computer operator, is what they called it, just running backups and stuff. And I did that for a while, and then got moved up to the daytime and was more of like a sysadmin. And I was working on more networking type stuff, and then I got laid off. This is like 2003, and
Okay.
every one of my friends in IT got laid off basically that same year. So I kind of decided it wasn't something I particularly enjoyed. Was someone else having control of that for me, but I had no
Sure.
idea what to do about it. So I bartended for a while, waited tables, just kind of like figuring out what I wanted to do next. And I was making actually pretty comparable money as to what I was making, and I was having more fun. It was like shorter shifts, work was hard, but you get to talk to people. So
Sure.
right up my alley. And so um at the same time, my brother, they just had their first kid down in Phoenix. And so my wife and I were like, well, I'm not working anything that's super important, and her job's super flexible. So why don't we just move down to Phoenix for a little bit, and we can be near our niece and you know have the flexibility to do that. And so right before I left, a friend of mine handed me a book, and it's like the basic origin story of pretty much any real estate investor. And it's Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad. And it's
Sure.
very like cliche, it's very basic, but if you've never like been exposed to anything like that, it kind of blows your mind, which it did for me. And so on the way down there, I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do real estate, something. And so that's kind of how I got started, was um, just doing like trying to learn anything that I could about real estate. Um, Went to a bunch of investor meetings, latched on to some agents, latched on to some investors, and really just like tried to learn everything that I could, and was, bartending at night basically.
Right.
And in retrospect, kind of a pretty easy, low stress time. It was like trying to learn everything that I could, making enough money to get by. Didn't have any kids or anything. So I was married, but didn't have kids. We're paying the bills just fine. And so that's kind of how the whole thing started. And that was, 2004, 2005. And I've been in real estate ever since.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Kiyosaki, one thing that I heard him say that it's like, wow, that's I wouldn't quite say blew my mind, but that's not normally how you think of things. And I saw him on something where he said, he was talking about how if you own a house, even if you've paid off the mortgage, it is not an asset.
Right.
It's still a liability. Is it making you money? And it's like, well, no. And he's like, it's liability. If you're sinking money into it, which is what you do with a house,
Right.
if you're not, if it's not being used to earn income. And it was like, yeah, okay. Because I had never heard, that the kind of typical is like, well, if you've paid the mortgage off, now it's an asset. It's not a
Right.
liability anymore. And
Right.
he's like, no, you're sinking money into that thing. Every time something breaks, you're fixing it, right? You're paying taxes on it the whole time. That
Right.
doesn't change. I mean, so I guess some states don't do property tax, but if you have a property tax, you're paying taxes on it forever. So that was
Yeah.
yeah, I hadn't heard anybody say it that way before. He was like, look, if you own something and it's not actually bringing you more money from you owning it, then it's a liability. It's not an asset.
Yeah. And yeah, there's some big names in this space that, they advocate renting your personal property and owning the rest for a lot of different reasons. I don't necessarily agree with that, um, but yeah, it's kind of this paradigm shift that, your grandma's like, buy a house, pay it off. When you're retired, at least you don't have to pay for that. And we all grew up kind of hearing those things. And so yeah, that's definitely a paradigm shift that we're not used to, right?
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, like I said, I haven't taken any it's something that it's in the back of my mind as a potential thing to get into, but I haven't pulled the trigger yet. I do find it interesting though, I was talking about our sponsor that does the gold backed IRAs.
Mm,
And one of the other things that they do, it's a managed asset IRA company basically.
okay.
So even though Noble Gold is the gold side of it, they also do. I saw on the website, whenever I check out my account, there is a thing where you can do a directed asset IRA that involves real estate. Do you know anything about those or how that would work?
Yeah. So like usually it's a self-directed. Um,
Right. Yeah.
so but you do need like a company that basically manages it or manages part of it for you. But yeah, you can actually loan money out of your IRA, and you can actually buy let's see. I think the rules are that you can't buy your own real estate, so you can't loan yourself like money for a rental property,
Right.
but you can loan that money out to, to a fund or a syndication or a friend, for basically, um, the note is an asset inside of your IRA, and that money, any of the interest or any of the agreed upon points or payoff, just basically gets funneled right back to your IRA. So it all goes out, or it all comes back in tax deferred. Uh, and so, yeah, we use private lenders. So basically, guys who have IRAs and just money sitting around. And a lot of them use their self directed IRA to loan us money for our, fix and flip projects or short term type projects. They like to see their money back within, at least recycled within 6 months. To a year, but so they're not lending on like 30-year projects or anything like that.
Right.
But yeah, that's definitely a great way to get in there. And there are some like really creative ways to use your self-directed IRA for real estate. It's just, I mean, that's like a whole, few hours on its own. But it is very interesting that, like, yeah, you can buy gold, you can buy real estate, you can buy all kinds of things
Bitcoin.
using your
Yeah.
IRA money, which is super cool, especially if you have like something that you need to roll over, like an old 401k or an old IRA.
Well, that's what I did. I had a Vanguard 401k that was not doing well.
Yeah.
I kept looking at these statements and I'm like, the point of this is for this balance to grow. What the fuck, And eventually I was like, look, gold. And I mean, there are arguments about gold too, but
Sure.
I pulled the trigger on the gold because I'm like, it's always worth something. It never goes to zero. Like precious metals have never gone to zero.
Right.
Can't say that for the stocks and bonds and stuff that they're putting money into in that 401k. So it was like, talk to the wife, of course. And it was like, I think this is a good idea because at least, I'm not going to see what I was seeing with the 401k where it was just like,
Right.
every time I'd look, I'm like, holy shit, what are you guys doing? And they're still taking fees for like moving
Yeah.
losing you money.
Yeah.
So we pulled the trigger on the gold backed IRA, but like I said, I keep thinking about like, ever since then, I've been kind of like, I love the idea of investing in stuff where it's tangible, which I sometimes get into because I'm in some of these libertarian kind of anarcho-capitalist spaces. And I, I do put some money into Bitcoin, but I don't have the strong feelings that they have about Bitcoin where they're like, they try to tell me that it has intrinsic value. And I'm like, it hasn't proven that yet. Like,
Right.
something like gold is proven that gold has always been worth something.
Right.
I mean,
That's
ever
true.
since the first person dug it out of the ground and smelted it into something pretty, it's like,
It is kind of like, it is kind of ridiculous if you think about it though. You're like, I think my son was telling me something about like, oh, if they mine asteroids, it's like a quadrillion dollars worth of precious metals. And it's like, well, no, it's not, because then it floods the market and then, it's basically worthless, right?
right.
But
Yeah.
like gold, there are conductive reasons to have it. But when it was first dug out of the ground, I mean, it was just like, ooh, shiny.
Yeah.
And that was it.
So one other thing I really want to get into, I don't know if you know that much about Eric and I, but we met working at a scout camp. So I'm curious about your experience as a scout leader and
Yeah.
and get into some of that.
Well, I saw that. I was like poking around your guys' site and I saw that blurb, and so I figured I'd throw it in. You guys have kind of a limited amount of room to kind of put your own information. So I was like, I'm going to throw this in there, and they have some sort of scouting background, and so yeah, I threw that in there. But yeah, my son in first grade, we saw like the sign for join scouts, and kind of talked to him about it, and he was into it, and some of his friends were going to join up, and so one thing leads to another as as a parent, and you get roped, you kind of get sucked in to do certain jobs. I think I was there for like a month before I was asked to be like an assistant den leader or something. And
Yeah.
I was like, well, yeah, assistant den leader, that's fine for first graders. This is fine. I looked through the book. I kind of like watched a couple videos. It's like, this is easy. Next thing I know, I'm den leader. And then like a year later, I am the scout master, or they call it the cub master for the, for our pack. And I'm leading like, uh, every Monday I have to, do the meeting and make sure that it's fun for all these elementary school kids and burn off their energy, and um, leading adults, all the leadership kind of meetings every month. And so it turned from very low commitment to the highest level of commitment that I wanted to go. And so and it's funny because I run a meetup group on Monday nights. I've been doing that for 11 years now, one Monday a month. And this just always clashed with it every time. And I was like, well, I can't like always grab somebody else to do it. And so I grabbed another friend to like run my meetup group for, for basically 2 or 3 years. And I'd go when I could. But and so, you know, when my son, and it's interesting because I was there during COVID. And so we got to do, you know, all of um all of those different kind of meetings. And then, a little bit after that is when my son um, got out of fifth grade and was going into troop scouts. And basically, it was just like I went from full commitment running the whole thing to like, do not talk to me for like 2 years. Like the leadership over there, I was just like, I love scouts. Like this, like most of his friends continued on to troop scouts. Like I'll be here for summer camp and I'll be here for stuff, but no, do not ask me to do anything for a while because I need a break. And so, that's been my experience. It's been really good. But at the same time, when you're a parent and, you know, and then you get roped in, and then you're like, your job is to rope in other parents and like suck them in too, like the first Tiger Scout meeting, you're like, one of you, just I don't care who it is, but one of you has to be the leader. So talk amongst yourselves and let me know. And so
Yeah.
it's it is interesting, but um, you know, summer camp, all the stuff that they do is I think still super important for boys. So
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we've had obviously quite a few discussions on the show about just things that you almost don't even think of, like some basic cooking skills.
mm,
Although typically with the Boy Scouts, it's over an open fire or something like that, or camping.
right.
But once you know how to do some of that, you can apply it to the kitchen at home
Yeah.
easily. Um, Stuff like knife safety. Later on, like with summer camp, gun safety.
Yep.
A lot of that stuff, it comes in real handy. And um, yeah, I was blessed with girls, and neither one of them has shown an interest in Girl Scouts. So uh, I, yeah, I haven't got roped into that, but
Well, it is interesting because BSA is co-ed technically. Um,
yes,
and I led that change too. We kind of like put it to a vote. We had a lot of girls who they had no interest in Girl Scouts, but they wanted to go camping, they wanted to go fishing, they wanted to go, shoot guns at camp and stuff. And so um, that was kind of like hearing from some of my parents who have boys and girls. They were like, at least we just have one thing to go to, and not like two things. And they're both interested in it, and it's separate for the most part, and then they come together for group stuff. Um but it was interesting because talking to some of those girls, they're just like, I don't want to go sell cookies and sew patches on uniforms. Like I want to go do what my older brother's doing. I want to go like get my knees skinned and go go camping.
well, and I think you hit the nail on the head. The Girl Scouts with the cookies. Uh, I'm not going to quite say that it's slave labor to sell cookies, but it appears. And look, the the Boy Scouts with the popcorn can be pretty pushy too, but it's
Yeah.
like those Girl Scouts, that seems to be their full-time thing is selling.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's a hard sell for that popcorn, man. I'm having PTSD over here. Like popcorn season was no fun for anybody. Um, but yeah, I mean, you have to fundraise on some level, but man, like yeah, those cookies do seem like, and the profit on the cookies is like so tiny. It's like a $4 box, and they make like, I don't know, they make something ridiculous like 40 cents or something. So
Yeah.
it's it's rough. It's a rough sell.
Well, and now they've licensed the flavors out. You can get like
Oh.
ice cream and stuff at the store that has so it's kind of,
Mm.
I don't know. I don't think the troops are seeing any of that money,
No,
you know.
no. The National Girl Scouts, they're raking it in, but that's about it.
Yep. Uh, uh, the other thing I was curious about is you also said that you're an author. I was wondering about your writing.
Yeah. So, I wrote a book in the real estate space, real estate investing space, published through the the biggest real estate investment. They kind of call themselves like a social media education type site, but they've been active since 2005. They have, they've published dozens of books by now, but you know, I had no intention of writing a book. I was just kind of in the right place at the right time. I'd been already writing articles and kind of a monthly cadence for their website. And I just happened to be like in their offices when one of their hosts of their podcast was in town, a friend of mine, Brandon, and I was just in the right place at the right time. And they were kind of like, "Hey, when are you going to write a book for us?" And it was like at the very, they had probably published 2 or 3 books at that point. And I was thinking, like, it took me, it's probably like time slowed down inside my brain, but I was like, I have no intention of writing a book. I don't have time to write a book. I don't want to, and if I did, I wouldn't want to self publish my book, but I'm absolutely going to kick myself for the rest of my life if I don't take this opportunity. Um, it's not like a penguin random house approaching you, but it's the next best thing inside of our space. And so, it took me like, 1 second to just be like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go. Let's see what this process looks like. Um, and worked it in around business and life and scouts. Yeah, I was doing scouts at the time. So worked it in around all of those things. And that book was published in 2017. And it's still, I still get messages. I still get people who have picked it up and read it, or picked it up at conferences, or picked it up at Barnes and Noble and read it, send me a message. And it's still like, okay, I made the right decision. Like for all those sacrifices of time and effort and energy, I'm glad I didn't say no to that opportunity at the end of the day. So it's called Finding and Funding Great Deals. It's all about, getting you from zero knowledge of how the closing process works or how to find deals, all the way to the closing table. And so, inside of there is, networking and marketing and uh, all the things that you do to go find good deals as a real estate agent or investor, and gets you all the way to the end of the process. And so that's kind of that experience in a nutshell. But yeah, and then I think I was asked the other day, I was just like, a friend of mine's writing a book and trying to sell it. And he's like, "Would you write another one?" And I was like, "I don't know, man. I'm all out of ideas. Like, I don't even know what I'd write it about at this point." but it's definitely an interesting process, and I'm glad I did it for sure.
So let me jump back to the real estate stuff for a second, because I just thought
Mhm.
of kind of another thing that I'm curious about. Are you more into the like buying houses and flipping them, or
Mm.
rental properties, or a little bit of both? Like,
Yeah,
you know,
that's a good question. So I've done both. I've done historically, I've done a lot of the flipping side of things. So finding a distressed house, fixing it up, selling it back on the market for more money, and then I've probably done close to about 120 of those in my career. And in the last 2 years, I've been focused more on the long-term cash flow side of things. So those buy and hold rentals, short-term rentals, mid-term rentals, long-term rentals, those kind of things where you buy it, you put a tenant in there, or you put it up on, uh, you know, Furnish Finder or Airbnb, and that's more of a quote unquote passive income. Nothing's passive, but that's close enough. So the first category is transactional real estate. So like, yeah, flipping houses is great. It's sexy, big, big paychecks potentially. But at the end of the day, it's a transaction. You have to get on to the next one if you want to keep making money. And so now I'm focused a little bit more on the other side where you buy that asset once and the cash flow comes in monthly, ideally.
So it sounds like still primarily residential, not
Yeah.
necessarily commercial.
Yep. All residential.
Okay. Yeah. I think that commercial stuff opens whole new cans of worms.
It does. And, I have friends who are killing it in storage units and assisted living, and they're doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But like my wheelhouse is here and I'm pretty comfortable, with it for now. But yeah, it's just a different zero at the end of every check that you write or even bring in. So it's
Right.
just a different level of risk, different asset class, all that craziness.
So let me ask you this, because if you've read on our website, Eric works as a maintenance man. I don't know what he calls himself in that space, to be honest. The company's Madrid Maintenance, but he does all kinds of. He's done remodels. He's been involved in flips himself.
Okay.
Do you have any flip horror stories where just nothing is going right? You're losing money.
Yeah.
Anything that made you like go, I want to get out of this business, or anything like that?
Yeah. I mean, I think if you're not questioning your sanity at least a few times in that process, you're doing it wrong. But I think, thankfully, knock on wood, my desk is thankfully real wood, but knock on wood, I haven't had a lot of deals gone bad. But the, you know, the places where you get into trouble are the places where you either stretch outside of your, your formula or um, your objective. I'm not thinking of the right word here, but you basically stretch outside of your limits. So if your deal box looks like this and you're like, well, this is close enough, that's when you always get in trouble. So for me, is a property up in Westminster, a little bit north of Denver, and it was just one of those times where I was like, my guys aren't super busy. I need to recycle some of my private money lending. I need to go find a deal. And so I kind of stretched outside of my box and I bought a deal that needed structural work, which I don't touch for a lot of reasons. Structural is just one of those things. Like buyers are terrified of it. So if as a rental, it's fine. Usually you fix the structural, you put a tenant in there, they're not going to complain, as long as it's fixed. But if you're buying, if you're selling that house to an end user, they're terrified of structural, and for good
Sure.
reason. Like you or I aren't going to be like super excited about that structural fixed up property. Like, did they do it right? Is it going to last? Is it going to come back? Like, all those questions as a home buyer. I'm putting $400,000 into this house. What am I,
Well, yeah, I mean,
is it?
somebody buying it is stuck with
Yes.
conceivably a 30-year mortgage on it, and compared to somebody who's renting, where if shit goes sideways,
Yeah.
under the law, sometimes they could break the lease if it's
Yeah.
real bad. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So this property had a front to back. The back was dropped due to water that had, just basically inappropriate drainage. Inappropriate. I don't know if that's the right word. It sounds like it's taboo or something like, but improper drainage in the back caused the rear of the foundation to sink about 4 inches. So when you're walking through the property from the front door to the back of the house, felt like you're walking downhill.
Ooh,
Like
yeah.
we have like pretty sensitive equilibriums. I don't know if you've walked in like a vacant house and you just feel like you're sloping or you feel like you're going downhill. But so it has this, front to back structural issue. I have a structural bid in hand, or I have two bids in hand. And, one's for like 24,000, one's for, I want to say it was like 16 or 17,000. I had talked to both of them. They're both big companies in Denver, or one's a big company in Denver and one's a guy who worked for that other company for like 20 years or something like that. I ended up going with the cheaper option. This wasn't a mistake, I don't think. Usually that's like where the gotcha is. It's like, well, I went with a cheaper bid and then I
Well,
got screwed.
you
No,
got
but
what
this
you
is more
paid for.
like exactly. This is more like the guy was actually honest with me and he's like, look, is that, I don't know if I want to name names, but is that
I
blah,
got you.
blah basement, systems? And I said, yeah. And he's like, well, yeah, I worked for them for 20 years. He's like, they're going to tell you that they can get the full 4 inches out of it. They're going to jack it up. It's going to be all back to normal. Everything's good to go. He's like, realistically, I can probably get you about half of that. Now they're going to get you half of that. It's just after you pay them. And then you're kind of just like, okay, now I'm screwed. And so I appreciated the honesty and, I was there that day. Super fascinating process of how they basically carve into the concrete and literally jack it up with jacks, and then shore it and make sure it's stable. But, being there and they got probably like 2.5 inches of lift out of it. I'm walking around upstairs. They're kind of finishing up. It's been a pretty long day. I think that they were down there for like 6, 7, 8 hours. And I'm walking around and I'm going, I can still feel it. Or is it in my head? Like I can still feel this. But at that point, there's not too much more you can do. Like that's the most that
Right.
the structural guys can do. And so long story short, that project did take about twice as long to sell. We had to like furnish it. We had to do all kinds of stuff to kind of, we had to supply obviously all of the structural bids and the paid bids and disclose that there was structural work done. And, through that process of just going long on the timeline, we ended up losing, I had to write a check at closing, which isn't something that you're supposed
Yeah.
to be doing to make money. But so, I go to, we finally find a buyer. And while it was under contract, like the basement flooded a bit as well. That was just like a broken sprinkler line and it went through the window well. It flooded the window well and then was just pouring into the basement. So I got a call from a showing agent that's like, well, there's a ton of water coming into the basement, and I live in Aurora. It's about 45 minutes away. And so, on like, know this though, if you ever have that problem, just call the water company. They'll have somebody out there in like 10 minutes to go
Right.
shut it off at the street. And so the water guy beat me, shut it off at the street. And then I spent the next like 12 hours, tearing up the carpet, vacuuming it all out, like making sure that nothing else is wrong. But anyways, we found a buyer. We went long on our timeline. I ended up writing a check for, about, I think it's $25,000, in order to get it closed. And so I wanted to make sure that my lenders were made whole, that my contractors were made whole. Nobody's losing money on this deal except for me. And then that way, when I go on to the next project, I have lenders who know that I have, integrity and that I'm going to do what it takes to get, these deals done. I have contractors who aren't mad, left holding the bill. And so, yeah, that's probably like my biggest horror story, thankfully. But we do see some crazy houses and have dealt with a bunch of crazy houses. But as far as like flips gone wrong, that's probably the worst, thankfully.
Well, that's interesting because you bring up a good point about kind of maintaining these relationships, even if it means you're losing a little bit. Because in the long run, it's better to have, like you said, lenders that'll still work with you, contractors that'll still work with you. People that are not like, well, on this last deal, this dude, you know, and in some of those spaces, word spreads.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So maybe one guy got screwed over, but it could wreck a relationship with several.
No, and that is very true. It's a tiny world, and you just don't know who knows each other. And a lot of the lenders or contractors, agents, like you're like that reputation will get around. And yeah, I've seen it on my end where I hear something about somebody who I'm working with, and I'm like, this guy probably doesn't even know that I know those 4 people that he kind of tried to screw over, you know?
Right.
And so, yeah, you have a good point there. Like, it's a small world. You might as well take care of everybody.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, we've come to the point in the show where I need to pay some bills.
All right. Pay some bills.
Speaking of money, so we're going to do that. And when we come back, we're going to get into a segment that we like to call Tools of the Week. And we'll go over a couple of things. For the most part, just fun stuff. But, and, you know,
I like it.
we'll have some fun with that. So stick around. We'll be back in 2 and 2, as they say, after these messages.
Dan is a contractor. He's the guy people turn to for bigger, better, or just plain brand new space. Where does he shop for his tools? ACME, home of the best brands in the business. After all, Dan knows your work is only as good as your tools. ACME Tools. Do your best work.
At acmetools.mantoolsmedia.com.
For our family, we had enough Valley food storage to last us for 3 months. And I cannot tell you, as a mom, the peace of mind that brings you, knowing that my family is going to be taken care of and fed. It was one of the best things that I've done for my family. And I want to let people know so they can be a little better prepared next time.
In a world full of endless information, it's hard to understand who or what to believe in anymore. But we can rely on our families, friends, and community. We can trust them and we can believe in them. Why would we be any different?
When you choose Valley Food Storage, you're getting food that is shelf stable for up to 25 years. You're getting high quality calories, not just empty carbs from additives. And most importantly, you're getting great service from great people who truly care about you and your family's well-being.
At Valley Food Storage, we pride ourselves on honest labels and ingredients because you deserve a company that you can trust to keep your family safe and prepared. We are honored to serve you and your family.
Prepare now at prepare.mantoolsmedia.com. All right. And of course, as usual, the Tool of the Week segment brought to you by ACME Tools. Check them out at acmetools.mantoolsmedia.com. And like I always say, I can't even keep up with the deals to give you coupon codes and stuff. So you just need to go onto the website and see what the deal is going on right now. Or use that QR code kind of right below my face. But in case you're unfamiliar with our Tool of the Week segment, so we try to get in actual tools like you would find in a hardware store. And we do have one of those, but more of them are people that you would call tools. So we'll start with this actual tool, which Eric sent to me. And being in the, if you're anywhere in the home renovation space, this appears to be a game changer. You've replaced toilets, right?
Yeah.
Don't you love those cool wax seals?
No, man, that's the most archaic thing ever.
Well, I think someone finally has an improvement on that design. And let's take a look. This certainly looks better.
Looking good.
Of course, my video is buffering. Come on.
YouTube will do that, man. It'll get you.
Try pausing it and playing again. There we go. Oh, fucking hell. All right,
What
well.
the heck?
Of Jesus. Well, anyways, I guess I'll describe it because so it's like, I'm not sure what the material is, but it looks like some kind of rubber / silicone. And it looks like it makes quite a few improvements on the old wax ring.
Yeah, it looks like it actually like bounces or actually
Does.
moves. Oh, there it goes.
Oh, fuck off. All right.
Huh.
It's not even on YouTube. It's on our Google Drive, so it should.
Yeah, it really
It should
should.
be quicker.
Huh. Self-adjusting.
Anyways, yeah, one and done is the brand. In case you want to look for it, waxless toilet seal. So, something that's actually useful.
Yeah, no kidding. And I know that they have like the silicone ones that replace the wax, but like this looks way better. It actually like has some, flex and kind of seals itself.
Yep. Now, this is not a useful tool. I mean, well, look, we have fun talking about women in the workforce. But here's a company where it appears at least the people in charge are all women. And I'm not going to say that this is why they're running into this problem, but I'm not sure you would get here with a man. I'll put it that way, and we'll have a look.
Danny, I'd asked for you to.
Oh, come on, dude.
Man, that Google Drive is killing us.
All right, I'm going to pop it off and refresh and see if that helps.
It's always the moment you need technology when it fails you.
I'd asked for you to research some Cocoa retreat options for 2024. I noticed
one really kind of needs the video too. Okay, well, so I guess I'll just tell you what happens. I don't know. That's pretty lame. So you can see it's a Zoom meeting, and the CEO is asking someone in that meeting. She apparently had asked, I guess they're looking at doing a corporate trip of some kind to, or maybe it's a prize. I don't know. They were looking at some kind of corporate thing to St. Lucia. And she's like, I was going over the company credit card and you actually purchased the trip. And she's like, well, yeah, I have to go scout it.
That sounds like something I would do. I'd be like, yeah, of course. Yeah, I got to go check it out.
Like, you don't just want to go with whatever, right? I have to go check it out, make sure it's good. And she's like, so first class tickets. And she's like, well, yeah, if that's
oh man. She sounds pretty smart. Like,
she's clever. Yeah.
Yeah. She's just like first class and 5-star hotel. Like, well, obviously, like, got to make sure it's good for her.
And then this girl immediately throws someone else under the bus. She's like, yeah, so-and-so said we should definitely, she should come with me and we should both go. That's why there's 2 tickets.
Oh man, that is good. That is very good.
But that very clever. I mean,
yeah,
we need to scout this out, right?
I mean, we can't just go in blind.
Yeah.
Pictures could be anything, especially on the internet. You never know.
Right. Let's see. Do I have, no, it's all video. Well, we'll see if this one works. Hopefully it does. And we like to bring it around to what we call a man of the week after talking about some tools. So this is I don't know what kind of boat this is, but it's this dude apparently, I'm gonna assume, is the captain of this vessel. I'm guessing some kind of fishing vessel. But he finds, and apparently this is a rather normal occurrence during certain times of the year, these little, like, tiny birds, little sparrows, will get caught in, I don't know if it's like the jet stream or something like that, and it carries them way out to sea. And if it wasn't for boats like this, that where people are cool, they would just die in the ocean because
Whoa.
they're not meant to live there. So check this.
When the wind's northerly, little birds like this get blown offshore.
Oh, come on.
Oh.
Come on.
I'm trying to think why Google Drive would do that.
I don't know, man. I mean,
wow.
I speak.
Little birds like this get blown offshore.
And it was
We pick them
rocking.
up.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, he's just a little guy too.
So you can see he's just a little tiny here.
Bring it in here. And we set it next to the heater.
Well, I guess I'll describe a video again. So they scoop the little guy up and bring him into the bridge. I don't know, wherever the wheel is. I don't know.
Sounds good. Yes.
And they set him in there and they like feed him crackers until they get back to like the shore, and then they'll like let him go again. But I guess it's a rather common occurrence that these little birds just get blown the fuck out.
Jeez.
100,000
die and 10 get saved.
I guess. Yeah. So
in this episode, 2 guys from Colorado try to figure out what the driving boat place of the boat is.
Yeah, the wheelhouse, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, you said bridge, and that sounds right. So,
well, I know that's like that's what they call it on Star Trek. So,
I mean,
I assume it's the
good
same
enough. Good
here
enough.
on Earth.
I'm just as close to owning a starship than I am owning a boat at this point in my life.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, good enough.
They're just as cost prohibitive, right?
Yeah. No kidding.
And then as we always do, we like to end the show with the week in his story. So hopefully we'll learn something. So we'll hit that. If dude, find the button. There it is. All right. The week in his story.
Comes to his end in the gutter, fitting climax to a life.
And first on the flank, get it started. It's fired and it's right.
And the week in his story brought to you by Smith & Bradley Men's Watches. Of course, I am wearing my awesome Discovery Field Watch. And you can get no-nonsense watches like this. You can get fancy watches. You can get diving watches.
Ooh.
Any of your watch needs can be met at Smith & Bradley Men's Watches by going to smithandbradley.mantoolsmedia.com or using that awesome QR code right there. This week in his story, we have some recent history, not that far back, about 15 years. We start with December 14th, 2008, when an Iraqi broadcast journalist, I'm not going to try to pronounce this name, threw his shoes at President George W. Bush during a press conference in Baghdad.
I remember that.
And to W's credit, he dodged both of them.
That is, I mean, that's some decent skills. to dodge those. Absolutely. I mean, like
Well,
the guy did throw it, and it looked like it's going straight towards his head. So that's a good throw and a
Yeah.
good dodge, I'd say.
Yeah. And obviously not something I think a U.S. president typically prepares for on a trip.
Right? No, yeah. I wonder, yeah. Was this before or after like Austin Powers, like Who Throws a Shoe? Was this like a joke based on this entire incident?
That's a
Like,
good
who
question.
throws a shoe? I mean, it's true. I mean, that's we were
I
all
love
thinking that.
I love that character though. The play on Odd Job is his name.
Yeah.
Random Task, I think it was like
Random task. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. Who throws a shoe? Random task. That's right.
Yeah. Let's see. Then December 15th, 1791. Important day in American history. The Bill of Rights is ratified in Congress. Something that many of the people involved in writing the Constitution wanted in there immediately. But to get past some kind of disputes, just getting the thing done, they went ahead and finished up the Constitution, and then came back and tacked these on. So, of course, includes awesome things like you can say whatever you want and carry a gun.
True that. Yeah, I mean, that is kind of risky though. You write part one and then not knowing that if you're going to get part two back in there.
Yeah.
Like, so that was a risk on their part, but it paid off.
Yeah. Let's see. And then December 16th, 1773, something that led up to this, to protest the tax on tea from England, a group of young Americans disguise themselves as Indians and throw chests of tea from British ships into Boston Harbor. And anytime this comes up, well, I guess it would be around December 14th or
Yeah.
December. Where are we at? 16th. I like to point out, people wonder why that was a big deal. And I had no idea until I actually saw tea from this time frame.
Huh.
So tea back then came in kind of compressed bricks because everything was about saving weight and volume for shipping because they had to send everything on ships. And what happens when tea that's packed like that hits water? It expands. So by throwing these barrels or whatever they came in of tea into the harbor, they actually made the harbor unusable because it was just the tea fluffed up and expanded. It was almost like throwing sponges in.
Oh wow. Yeah.
That's why it was a big deal. They completely disrupted the use of the harbor and actually caused it to be unusable until the tide. And there's no way to like clean that up, especially back then. They just had to wait for the tide to carry that shit out.
Wow. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I did not know that. I
yeah.
thought it was just like, protesting and destroying the merchandise. But it makes more sense that they did both. They destroyed the merchandise and made the harbor unusable, which at the time would be like,
That
closing
was a
down the airport.
huge deal. Yeah. Oh, dude. Yeah. Could you imagine how pissed off you'd be if you found out the
Yeah.
airport was down?
I know all of your and then all of your goods too. So it's like, not just the airport for travel,
You're not
for
getting your
funsies.
Amazon package, basically.
Riots in the streets, man. That would be bad.
Let's see. And then December 17th, 1989. This is hilarious. The Simpsons debuts on Fox, which was also a relatively new network. It spun off from the Tracy Ullman show, for those that don't remember the history there. And that image is actually what they looked like at first, until they refined the look a little bit over the years.
Yeah, a little bit. Like I was born in 79, so I was like 10, but I never saw the Tracy Ullman show, but now when I go back and look at it, it's painful. Like the Simpsons is painful. Even first season Simpsons is like, it did not catch its stride for a little bit, but I do remember watching the Simpsons,
I
in
do too.
1989. Like,
yeah,
it was controversial. It was, but yeah, this Simpsons is definitely a whole different that's a different show. That's like the Martins or something. I don't know what that is.
Well, and I remember how hip Fox was compared to
Oh, sure.
the other, what was it, three networks or whatever that were on the
Yeah.
air then.
Yep.
It was like, wow, Married with Children,
Yeah.
Cops, and The
Yeah.
Simpsons were kind of their three shows.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. That was a big deal. There were, there was people up in arms about, the quote unquote vulgarity of The Simpsons. But you look at it
Yeah,
now and you're like this is the, this is the
it's a
most.
wholesome family show now.
Yeah. That's so true. That's so true.
Let's see, and then December 18th, 1865, some more big item, a lot of stuff in December with big item American history
Yeah,
things.
really.
Slavery is officially abolished in the United States as the 13th Amendment is formally adopted into the U.S. Constitution, ensuring that, quote, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude shall exist within the United States nor any place subject to its jurisdiction. So, a big deal.
Yeah, very big deal. Absolutely.
And then, this is a fun one. I'm sure you remember this because you said you were born in 79, which means we're the same age.
All right.
December 19th, 1998, President Bill Clinton is impeached. The House of Representatives approved 2 articles of impeachment against Clinton, charging him with lying under oath, which is, a lot of people get caught up in, the Lewinsky thing, but
Right.
he wasn't impeached for that. He was impeached because somehow there was a grand jury going on and he lied to them.
Yeah, that is a good point. People remember the one thing, but they don't remember like the actual thing.
Yeah.
I think I was in college that year, and so I wasn't paying attention because I think JFK died, or JFK Jr. died.
Oh yes. Yep.
Like in '98, and I remember like my girlfriend, now wife, was talking about it or something, but like I didn't pay attention to what was going on, but like, yeah, for all that to happen in December, it's pretty crazy. Or December, like right around this time, within a few days, that's crazy.
Yeah. And then finally, I think this is finally, yes, December 20th, 1802, the United States buys the Louisiana Territory, including at least a portion of Colorado, from France. This was another big deal because Thomas Jefferson, interesting president, was seen as, well, he helped write it, so he was seen as a very staunch constitutionalist. And then he became the president and did this, and there was huge questions like, do you even have the authority as president to commit us to buying land from France?
Yeah, it's like literally the Wild West. There's no precedent of of how to do this, right?
Yeah. I mean, he had to get, even back then, Congress, as they sometimes throw the term around, held the purse strings. So to get the money to actually change hands, he had to go to them. But it was like, there were huge, like, can he even start making this deal?
Yeah, it's like,
And he was
is
like,
this?
Nothing told me I can't, so I guess I can.
I like that attitude. Like, yeah, it's like, well, nobody says I shouldn't do it. What was do you have the purchase price in front of you? Because that's it's a
I
bargain, whatever it is.
don't. I remember it's something, when you hear the number nowadays, it's like, what? It's like $200 million or something, with now that we have a country where budgets are in the trillions.
Right. Yeah. Also true. So yeah, this says 15 million, which
15
is
million.
equivalent of 358 million. Still, that's like what? At least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 entire states and about 10 other partial states. So that's a good deal. It's a pretty good deal.
That's some acreage.
Yeah. And I'm sure France was just like, I mean, maintaining, power across the ocean during that time was probably like, oh yeah, let's get out of this, and we'll get $358 million equivalent.
Well, and if I'm not, this was 1802, so maybe not. I was going to say Napoleon. I'm sure I remember reading it was Napoleon that was in charge of France at the time, and but I was thinking maybe the War of 1812 was starting to cause problems for him, but
Okay.
1802 sounds a little early. I don't know. He apparently just somehow they decided that they needed the cash more than the land.
I mean, yeah, they kind of carved off the chunk of Canada, right? And then they maybe included part of or kept that and sold the rest to the Americans. I guess it sounds
I
like.
guess, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting that, and I think my son was they were learning about the purchase of Russia, or excuse me, purchase of good lord, how many beers have I had? Just one. Okay. The purchase of Alaska from Russia, and
Oh yeah.
the cost and like the reasons and everything behind it, and like I'm sure that France would probably hope that they kept that land at some point. They're like, that's worth a lot of money, but it's also really hard to uphold from France, which is pretty far away.
Well, that's probably part of how we got away with having our little revolution, and
yeah, yeah.
Nowadays, I think it's funny. Like, I don't think you could do something like that because of air power. Like the
Yeah.
fact that whoever owns a colony can fly there in a matter of hours and just handle shit.
Yeah. And weren't the British on, they were like fighting on a few different fronts, skirmishes here and there.
They
And they're
pissed a
like,
number of people off.
yeah. And then they're just like, well, we'll have this kind of small force in America to kind of keep the colonists in line. And yeah, after a few years of the Revolutionary War, or even a year, they're probably just like we cannot maintain this across the ocean. Like this is too much. Let's just let them have it.
Yep. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, with the end of the week in history, that also means that it is at least nearly the end of our show. So, thank you, Anson, for hanging out with us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, before we leave, we want to get some plugs in, so feel free to let our audience know. Well, if you want to be found, where they can find you.
If you're not hiding out in that bunker in the ground, yeah. So if you are on Instagram, I'm at Young Anson. Facebook, LinkedIn, it's all Anson Young, and then yeah, I'm starting a new podcast. So if you're interested in real estate investing and you want to hear real stories from real investors who are doing cool and fun things, propertysquadhq.com. That's where I'm at.
Okay. And of course, we have some things to let the folks know about as well. Our locals members, of course, How to Be a Cunning Linguist has actually been out for a little while. And we'll be doing, as we talked about last week, next week, we'll be doing Man Tools at the Movies, watching at least the first part of the new movie Police State from Dinesh D'Souza about the kind of weaponization of the different law enforcement entities in America for political purposes. So that should be very interesting. Of course, you can get that and all of our locals content for just $3 a month by going to mantoolsminions.locals.com, and you can get 1 month free with the code support free speech. That's all one word. Merch. Oh yes, I need to show this. It is that time of year, so our ugly Christmas sweater is out. I kind of screwed up and didn't get it out in time for standard shipping to get it to anyone for Christmas. So you will have to use expedited shipping if you would like to get this wonderful thing. Let me pop it up here. Here we go. This is this year's design. So, of course, they're not actually sweaters. It's available in either a sweatshirt or a hoodie. But but they both look like that either way. So give that as a gift to a loved one.
That's awesome.
And
I love that.
for Christmas, now, well, I guess I should say now until Christmas, the code XMIS23 will get you free shipping on your order. I don't know if it applies to that expedited shipping that I just talked about. Try it. I don't know. It's up to spring, I guess, whether or not that works. And then, of course, we would like to thank our sponsors. Find all of them at sponsors.mantoolsmedia.com. Oh, and the merch, you can find it merch.mantoolsmedia.com. So, yes. And finally, we would like to thank all of you for watching or listening. Check us out on the web at mantoolsmedia.com. You can get all of our social media links at links.co/mantoolsmedia. Once again, Anson, thank you for hanging out with us. And Eric and I will see the rest of you next week. Same man time, same man channel. So good night, everybody.